The year is 2025, June, hot. Donald Trump was back against all odds, against most predictions. He had won. Again, the popular vote, they said, 2 million more. It didn't quiet the noise. The noise was louder now. A roar of triumph, of terror. America was a split screen, one side cheering, the other heads in hands. The White House felt different. Again, the same gold, the same flags, but the air crackled with him, with what he might do. Nobody really knew, not even his closest people, especially not them. The world watched, from Beijing, from Moscow, from Brussels. They remembered the first time, the tweets, the tariffs, the torn-up treaties. Now he was President Trump. Again, older perhaps, wiser. That was the trillion-dollar question, or maybe just more Trump. The news channels buzzed, non-stop. Speculation was the only currency. His team was a new cast, some familiar faces, some surprising. Alice Marie Johnson, his pardon czar, a symbol of his belief in redemption. Or so the spokesman said. Redemption was a big word, a heavy one. His early moves were pure Trump, unpredictable, bold, some said reckless. He talked of pardoning more, drug kingpins, hackers, people who had done bad things, very bad things. This while also calling for the death penalty for fentanyl dealers. Contradictions or a strategy too complex for mere mortals? His base loved it. The base was solid, unshakable. They saw a fighter, their fighter. He was disrupting, again. That was his brand, his promise, his very essence. He was here to shake things up. The global stage was already shaky. The Russia-Ukraine war still simmered. A peace meeting in Istanbul was mooted. Contingent on Russia. Always contingent on Russia. Iran. A nuclear deal? Trump was optimistic. He told Netanyahu, don't strike. Words, just words. Or the first moves in a game only he understood. The US Court of International Trade blocked his new tariffs. He exceeded his power, they ruled. He would appeal. Of course, he would appeal. The fight was everything. The fight was the point. The world braced itself. The problems were piling up like bad debts. The global economy felt fragile, a house of cards in a hurricane. Trump's trade policies, even with court challenges, sent ripples, big ripples. Ports like Long Beach felt the strain. Goods stuck, prices rising, people nervous. The talk of slashing government spending with Elon Musk briefly at the helm of a Doge service had been a strange interlude. Musk was gone. The spending remained. A familiar story, but the world's problems were bigger than just money. Nuclear shadows lengthened. Iran was one piece. North Korea, always North Korea, was another. Silent, watching, building. The old fears resurfaced, fears of miscalculation, of escalation. Trump's rhetoric was tough, very tough. But behind the scenes, that was the mystery. He spoke of deals, always the deals. Could he deal his way out of a nuclear winter? The experts scoffed, the media mocked, but the stakes were real, terribly real. Every coded message, every satellite image, every tremor near a known test site. The world held its breath. Then came the whispers from the east. A new alliance, a chilling prospect. China and Russia, closer than ever, joint military drills, economic pacts, a united front against the West, against America, against him. Xi Jinping was quiet, calculating. Putin was emboldened, playing a long game. The geopolitical chessboard was alive, pawns moving, knights jumping, kings and queens in fortified positions. This was not just about Ukraine anymore. This was about the world order, a new one perhaps, adding to the turmoil. A rogue state, unnamed, unpredictable. Suddenly they had something they shouldn't have. Long-range missiles, maybe more. Intelligence was frantic, conflicting reports. Panic flickered in the halls of power. From Washington to London, Paris to Berlin. Was this it? The spark? The one that ignites the whole damn thing? Trump received the briefings, his face unreadable. He listened. He nodded. He asked questions, sharp questions, the kind that cut through the jargon. The kind that made generals sweat. The storm was no longer gathering. It had arrived. Trump's approach was Trump? No other word for it. He bypassed the usual channels, the striped pants diplomats, the endless committees. He picked up the phone, direct lines to Xi, to Putin, to Macron, to anyone he thought mattered, sometimes at odd hours. Sometimes with outrageous demands, sometimes with unexpected charm. The world leaders were baffled, irritated, intrigued. They'd never seen anything like it, not from an American president, not from anyone. He used Twitter, still, or X, whatever it was called now. Short bursts, capital letters, exclamation points. He laid out his thoughts, his threats, his offers in real time for everyone to see. The foreign policy establishment gasped. This wasn't diplomacy, this was madness, but was there a method to it? He sowed confusion. He kept everyone off balance, his allies, his enemies. No one knew what he would do next. He thrived in the chaos. He seemed to believe chaos was a tool, a weapon. With Xi Jinping, the calls were tense, respectful on the surface, but an undercurrent of steel. Trump talked trade, he talked Taiwan, he talked about the new worrying alliances. Xi listened. He spoke of ancient history, of China's destiny, two strong men, two visions, clashing, yet Trump would hang up and say, "We have a good relationship, a very good one." With Putin, it was different. A strange rapport, a shared disdain for the old rules. Trump pushed on Ukraine. On the rogue state, Putin parried, denied, obfuscated, but he listened. Emmanuel Macron of France tried to be the bridge, the voice of reason. He called Trump often, urging caution, urging unity with allies. Trump listened to Macron, sometimes. He liked Macron in his own way. He's a tough guy, Emmanuel, Trump would say. But he doesn't get it, not really. Trump believed he saw things others didn't, that he could cut through the noise, that only he could make the deals that needed to be made. Even if it meant breaking every rule in the book, his doctrine was simple. America first and Trump first, always. The rogue state was not backing down. Their rhetoric grew hotter, their actions more provocative. They test-fired another missile. This one flew further, higher, closer to a major US ally. The world was on a knife edge. Emergency sessions at the UN, condemnations, sanctions, the usual playbook. It wasn't working. The rogue leader seemed to enjoy the attention, the fear. He felt powerful. He felt untouchable. This was his moment on the world stage. Intelligence reports grew darker. The rogue state wasn't just bluffing, they were preparing. Actively for what? A demonstration, an attack? No one was sure, but the worst-case scenarios were terrifying. Regional war, global implications, the markets tumbled, gold soared, people started talking about fallout shelters again, a forgotten fear from a colder time, the red button, the ultimate nightmare. It felt closer than it had in decades. The weight on every leader was immense. Trump was briefed daily, hourly. He met with his national security team, generals, spies, diplomats. They presented options, military strikes, cyber attacks, covert operations, blockades. Each option carried enormous risks, retaliation, escalation, unintended consequences. The room was thick with tension. Trump listened, he absorbed, he pushed back. Not good enough, he'd say. Find me something better. He wanted a win, a big one. Not a messy, bloody conflict. He wanted to be the hero, not the warmonger. The pressure mounted, allies urged action, some urged restraint. The media was a frenzy of speculation. Will he, won't he? Pundits debated his psychological state, his fitness for command. His critics saw their worst fears realized, an unstable leader, a dangerous moment. His supporters prayed. They believed in him. They believed he could find a way, anyway, but time was running out. The whispers of war became shouts. The world braced for impact. Something had to give, soon. Section 5. The Florida Gambit, an unprecedented call. Then Trump did something truly Trump. He announced a summit, not in Geneva, not in New York, but at Mar-a-Lago, his Florida palace, his home turf. He invited everyone, the rogue states leader, Xi, Putin, key European leaders, key Middle Eastern players, even leaders of nations that were technically at war with each other. The world gasped. Was he insane? A photo op while the world burned, or something else? Something bold? The invitations went out. Direct, personal, no diplomatic niceties. Come to Florida, the message essentially said. Let's talk, let's make a deal. A big one. The biggest. Many were skeptical, many were outraged. The optics were bizarre. The security implications, a nightmare. How could these sworn enemies sit in the same room, in Palm Beach, surrounded by palm trees and golf courses? It seemed like a farce, a dangerous, narcissistic farce. But then something strange happened. Acceptances started to trickle in. First, a minor player, then a more significant one, then a big one. Putin said yes. He was always unpredictable. Perhaps he saw an opportunity. Xi was hesitant, but then he too agreed. Perhaps he didn't want to be left out, or perhaps he saw a chance to manage Trump directly. The rogue leader, he was the wild card. For days, silence. Then a cryptic message. He would attend. He would come to America, to Trump's house. The world watched, stunned. This was not how global crises were managed. This was reality TV diplomacy, but it was happening. The logistics were frantic. Secret Service working overtime, diplomats scrambling, the media descended on Florida. It was the biggest show on earth. Trump was in his element. He loved the attention, the drama, the high stakes. It'll be beautiful, he told reporters. A beautiful meeting. We're going to solve it. You watch. Few believed him, but everyone was watching. Section 6, inside the gilded cage, high-stakes diplomacy. Mar-a-Lago was transformed, a fortress but a luxurious one. Gold trim, crystal chandeliers, and now anti-aircraft missiles hidden in the landscaping. World leaders arrived, grim-faced, suspicious of each other, suspicious of their host. Trump greeted them personally. Big smile, firm handshake. "Welcome to my home," he said, as if this were a normal weekend gathering. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. Inside, the air was thick. Years of animosity, decades of mistrust, all cooped up in a gilded cage. The initial meetings were tense, small groups first. Trump shuttled between them, the ballroom, the library, the patio overlooking the ocean. He listened, he cajoled, he flattered, he threatened. His style was unique. He'd tell Yi about the great chocolate cake. He'd reminisce with Putin about something. He'd berate the rogue leader, then offer him a Diet Coke. He ignored protocol. He ignored advice. He followed his gut. His famous gut, the one that had gotten him this far. He brought in unexpected figures, not just diplomats, business leaders, celebrities he trusted. Even his pardon czar, Alice Johnson, was there, talking about second chances. It was unorthodox, it was bizarre, but it changed the dynamic. It broke the ice, or maybe it just confused everyone into submission. He focused on the rogue leader, the source of the immediate crisis. He alternated between charm and fury. "You're a smart guy," he'd say, "too smart to blow up the world, and your own country." Then he'd lean in. "But if you try anything stupid, well, you know me." He painted a picture of total annihilation, then a picture of prosperity, of acceptance, of deals. "You can be a hero," he told the rogue leader, "a hero to your people, or a footnote in a history of disaster." He showed him intelligence, the kind that wasn't public, the kind that showed just how outmatched he was, and just how serious the other powers were. Slowly, painstakingly, he began to wear him down. The pressure was immense, on everyone. Section 7. The Art of the Unthinkable Deal. A planet holds its breath. The negotiations went on for days, round the clock. Tempers frayed, walkouts were threatened. Trump never seemed to sleep, fueled by burgers and Diet Cokes. He was a whirlwind of activity. One moment he was shouting, the next he was cracking jokes. He played them off against each other. He made promises, some conflicting. He offered concessions that made his own team wince. He was rewriting the rules of diplomacy on the fly, or more accurately, ignoring them completely. The key was the rogue state. Trump focused on its leader. He offered security guarantees, not from the US alone, but from Russia, from China, a joint promise, unprecedented. He offered economic aid, investment, a path out of isolation, but the price was steep. Complete, verifiable denuclearization. No wiggle room, no tricks, international inspectors, full access, anytime, anywhere. The rogue leader balked. This was his leverage, his power, his identity. To give it up, unthinkable, Trump pushed. He used Xi, he used Putin. "You guys want stability, right?" he'd say. "This guy is your problem too, help me fix it." He appealed to their self-interest. A regional war would be bad for business, bad for their own ambitions. Slowly, the other major powers began to apply pressure, quietly, behind closed doors. The rogue leader found himself isolated, not just by his enemies, but by his supposed friends. The dynamic in the gilded cage had shifted. Then came the breakthrough, late one night. After endless coffee and shouting matches, the rogue leader blinked. He agreed, in principle. The details still needed to be hammered out, but the core agreement was there: denuclearization in exchange for security and a future. Trump immediately called a press conference on the Mar-a-Lago lawn, under the stars. "We have a deal," he announced, "a tremendous deal. The world will be a much safer place." The planet, which had been holding its breath, let out a collective sigh of relief, of disbelief. Section 8, Sunrise over a scarred world, a shift in the sands. The news flashed across the globe, deal reached, crisis averted. The initial reaction was stunned silence, then cautious optimism. Could it be true? Had Trump, of all people, pulled it off? The details began to emerge: the scope of the agreement, the verification mechanisms, the roles of China and Russia. It was complex, it was fragile, but it was a deal, a tangible step back from the brink. The markets rallied violently. World leaders who had arrived at Mar-a-Lago full of skepticism were now forced to acknowledge what had happened. Macron, ever the diplomat, was one of the first. President Trump took a bold initiative, he conceded, and it appears to have borne fruit. Putin and Xi offered more measured statements, praising the dialogue, emphasizing their own roles. But the credit ultimately went to the man who had convened the improbable summit, the man who had forced the issue. The media was in a bind. For years they had painted Trump as a dangerous buffoon, a threat to global stability. Now he had seemingly stared down a nuclear threat and won, without firing a shot. Columnists struggled to explain it. Pundits recalibrated. Some offered grudging praise. Others warned it was too soon to celebrate, that the deal could fall apart, that Trump was still Trump. But the narrative had shifted undeniably. For the average person around the world, the relief was palpable. The fear of imminent war receded. There was a sense that maybe, just maybe, the world had dodged a bullet, a very big bullet, and the man who had caught it or deflected it was the most unlikely of saviors. Donald Trump, the brash billionaire, the reality TV star, the twice-impeached president, he had faced down the abyss, and for now the abyss had blinked. The sun rose over a scarred world, but a world with a little more hope. Section 9, The Peacemaker, An Impossible Redemption. In the weeks and months that followed, the Mar-a-Lago Accord held. Inspectors deployed. The rogue state began dismantling its weapons programs slowly, reluctantly, but it was happening. The world watched, still wary but increasingly hopeful. Trump, for his part, took a victory lap. Of course he did. Rallies, interviews, tweets, "I told you so" was the general theme. Only I could have done it. And for once, fewer people were arguing with him. His approval ratings soared, not just in America, but globally. People who had despised him now saw him in a new light. Perhaps his unconventional methods, his willingness to break norms, were exactly what was needed in such a perilous moment. He had shown unexpected bravery. He had stared into the eyes of dictators and not flinched. He had cut through the diplomatic fog. He had, in his own chaotic way, brokered a kind of peace. His interactions with Putin and Xi, once seen as suspect, were now viewed as masterful strokes. The talk turned to his legacy, no longer just about division and controversy, but about this singular achievement. Saving the world. It sounded hyperbolic, but what else could you call it? He had faced down a nuclear crisis. He had brought bitter enemies to the table. He had forced a deal where everyone said a deal was impossible. His personal growth seemed evident to some. The weight of the world crisis had perhaps forged a different kind of leader, or maybe he was just the right man at the right terrifying moment. The redemption arc was complete. The pardons he had issued, once a source of criticism, were now sometimes mentioned in a different context. A man who believed in second chances, even for nations. He had won back public trust, not by changing who he was, but by being unapologetically himself on the biggest stage imaginable. Donald Trump, the peacemaker, the unlikely hero, the man who against all odds had saved the world. The history books would be interesting, very interesting indeed.